line hero. He could perform extremely well online, but just couldn't bring it to the LAN stages. He did in Poland, finishing 3rd place and knocking out a bunch of top players such as Kilson and Wenger. And here he is again, only this time around it's online, which is his own comfort zone. So I think a lot of people are expecting great things from him.
I will say that I think prior to last season, CNZ was considered slightly, I think, better than Base overall in terms of how he was progressing, and he was a slightly more refined version of what Base was offering. So they do match up interestingly in that they have quite similar profiles and quite similar backstories and playstyles. So this is a really, really interesting dichotomy between these two.
I'm actually going to be interested in Blood Run for that exact reason. But it's the first map that we get to see between the two players. The picks themselves, I mean, nothing really too out of the ordinary is there with the Gleaner and the Doomslayer. They have similar styles, but I mean, I'm excited to see it. I'm really excited to see it, in fact.
Yeah, and just to pick up on what Dan just said, the last time these two actually played each other was in Stage 2, and that was a convincing 3-0 victory for CNZ. So if we build upon that, then it's pretty clear that last time they faced off, CNZ definitely figured out a way to one-up Base.
That is true, and that is obviously pre-massive result at the finals for Base. And obviously we wonder if that was a matter of him changing as a player, being able to evolve and adapt, and now coming back into this, finally having an official matchup again versus CNZ. Will the result be different, as both of them obviously representing Black 100, who will be the better man and the victor coming out of this one? We are stepping into Blood Run as our first map. Lads, let's kick it off.
Well, look, we know that Base is often described as like one of the slowest players in the scene and one of the most defensive players in the scene, but to be honest, as we go throughout the course of Pro League, he starts to come out a little bit. There is definitely more aggression, more pushes. It's not that he kind of holds a location and sits on it. There is so much more to it than that, to the point where, do we think the results could be the same? Maybe not. Either way, we're loading into Blood Run, first map. We're going to be checking out CNZ's point of view first.
Yeah, starting it off on the Doomslayer versus the Galena. So we've got one with the defensive totems and the other who's got the mobility, the double jump that can help you so much on a map like Blood Run, where there's a lot of these nice little shortcuts. Instantly making your way over to shotgun or to heavy are some of the few things that you can do.
Wow.
But here we go, Base just showing just what you were talking about, coming out of his shell, immediately going for that instant aggression, and it's paying off nicely as he nets himself the first frag with the railgun.
And now back in the center of the map, we're looking for an opportunity to really spring the LG, of which decent damage is peppered out there. CNZ is at the very least going to be able to deny the full control from Base. Base does, of course, have the Mega in hand. And it's that matchup with Galena. Galena, if she maintains the heavy, which I'm interested to see if Base is able to kind of take control of it with the totems in hand. But CNZ, this is that moment we expect to see. Neither player is going to overextend. Neither player is going to push super hard. The patience.
Also worth pointing out, this is something we didn't have time to discuss before the match started, but these two are actually teammates, both signed to the B100
Yes,
clan,
indeed.
Russian clan largely, and so they clearly have quite a bit of experience playing each other. They know the other player's play style very well, and that might also make for some interesting results. Now Base finally setting up his 3 totems pretty early on in the game as well, only a minute 30 seconds in. CNZ will find one of those, but still, Base pretty close to getting them up once again, having that overstack healing ready to go.
Totem's going to give Base a decent amount of information. It is going to indicate that, hey, this heavy's free to take. And the Mega to boot, giving Base full control. Pretty much to the moment this map started, Base has been the one that's been in control here, but it's not very explosive right now, Flea. And truly, we've been seeing Blood Run as a map become a lot more aggressive as the weeks have been going on. But with these two players, you can expect a much more traditional Blood Run. It's just the way they approach things.
Absolutely. CNZ does not want to give up any more frags right now. He's going to play a very cautious game as well, whereas Base just continues running the items and just hopes to catch the side of his opponent. CNZ does have pretty decent positioning towards the top, unable to punish his opponent coming out of the teleporter though. This is indeed a pretty slow play game. There we go, Base landing some good rockets. CNZ caught, pinned against the wall in a bad position. Base even gets away with the heavy. I like that play.
Guarantee.
CNZ, yeah, pretty much. CNZ, luckily for him though, managed to stay in the blood pool down there long enough that he healed himself right back up to be able to survive taking the totem. But still, he's crippled. Base, definitely the one with the better stack.
There really is so much respect coming out of CNZ here. He knows that there's only one frag of a difference. There's no need to push too hard, no reason to overextend. Just play it carefully and safe, and you wait for that one magic moment. The danger with how slow CNZ's been playing, and this is typical of Bloodrun, is that one player is just constantly cycling the map and holding all of the items. You find yourself in a position where you have to make something kind of brash happen. But now Base, on top of running the control, he's looking for an angle. He's looking for a rail. The second he manages to hit one significant rail, I do wonder what the chase is going to look like for Base.
It's going to be difficult, nevertheless. DNC, it's about time for him to start looking for an opportunity. He's got himself 100-100 stack, maxed out his base limit of both health and armor. He's got himself all of the weapons, I believe, that he needs. So now he has to start looking for a way back in. Trying to land the cheeky, sneaky rail, maybe a rocket on a heavy or something, just to start setting up for a combo to reclaim an item and get control. That's a good opening rail. Misses the second one, though. If he had hit that, that might have given him an opportunity to make a push for Mega.
Speaking of push, CNZ gets 2 rails back to back. That's not a bad day in the office at all. A danger though. Overstack's going to become apparent in 1 second. On top of the fact that there was already a Mega taken, has just made Base nice and healthy. CNZ springs the attack. That's kind of bad news, really, that he takes all that LG, the rail misses his mark, so it is unreturned damage. And he already knows now Heavy is going to be free for another time. Base has been the one running that circuit all map long. CNZ, I mean, the pressure is starting to add up. Makes a big play towards Mega, that missed rail. But thankfully, immediately turned back. Look at how quickly Base can get that stack back up on deck.
Yeah.
The second he's got control and he has all 3 totems locked and loaded. And he's putting them in really smart places too, because when a player's behind on this map, they really like to set up where CNZ is currently waiting. It's unlikely that he's going to go that far out of his way into that room of all rooms when he's this far behind to take them out.
And I think Base is playing pretty protectively over that one room as well. He knows he doesn't even need Mega, right? CNZ stole it and his reaction was, okay, you take the real Mega, I've got my own Mega waiting just around the corner, so you just go on right ahead. So he clearly wants to keep CNZ away from those totems. Keep them alive and guarded, but on the other hand, Base is still itching for some more damage. He doesn't want this to end up being a one-frag game, because things can turn around so quickly. CNZ frozen in place, but such excellent LG coming out from the Estonian player. Base does get himself healed up first, because he does have his own totems to help him.
When you look at how Base approaches this game and then you give him Galena and a full rotation of totems, you just have to get nervous. Because he's playing so rock solid around this map, and then the second he needs health, there is that immediate burst of HP. He now has another frag and even more control. I'm really curious to look at the end game stats to see just how many of these items Base took over CNZ by the end of it. CNZ, he's just not really been able to exist much on this map at all.
Base just isn't allowing him. No space whatsoever. Base is there to challenge every single major item, and then he's also doing an extremely good job at setting up his own turrets, or totems rather, forcing CNZ to go and find them out and put himself in dangerous position if he wants to cull that stack a bit. Dropping down on the shaft, pretty risky play from Base. Luckily for him, CNZ unable to capitalize off of it, will even secure the heavy still. And CNZ gotta start thinking about making a move. 2.5 minutes left, give or take. 2 frags down on a map like Bloodrun against the Galena. That's a tall order.
Base continues to starve CNZ from those lights. Nama was finally taken by CNZ, but as we are now in the 2.5 minute mark, we can start to see the extra defense style come through. Base with a little fake out. I like that cute stuff. But now we can start to see Blood Run in its purest form. Base with a decent stack, a lead, and now, I mean, if he has the option to go in, of course he will. But now, okay, Totem's down. Is he far away? Hit the rail. CNZ. Extremely weak. The light has been taken though, so Base has to be quite careful here.
Yeah, both players railable there for a moment. No frags given or taken though. Base just healing himself up right up to 100 health by using the blood pool before dipping out of that room. He knows that he's got a decent lead for a map like Blood Run. Usually you wouldn't say that 2 frags is enough to go by, but on a map that is so defendable as Blood Run, it can definitely be enough. You've got so many of these choke points, these small narrow hallways that your opponent has to push through, and some defensive rockets can just shut down pretty much every single attack. And Base is just banking on that right now, positioning himself strategically close to the teleporter so he can get out at a moment's notice, and he's just hoping to run down the clock now. This is the classic defensive passive Base.
And as you can tell, the only reason CNZ is now the one in control is because Base has simply allowed it to be. He has no interest in pushing too hard to get either of these items now, because being around there means you're at risk. Being at risk means you can lose frags. Losing frags means that he's going to lose that 2-0 lead. Of course he's going to sit there.
Oh.
Ah, that rocket hurts. After all that work CNZ did for his stack, it's pretty much undone by one direct. And he's going to play the teleporter game. CNZ has to get not 1 perfect read, but 2. He has to get 1 frag first, and then fresh off the spawn, secure another. He struggled for the 9 minutes we've already played. And now he gets the moment. Oh! Rocket,
Base
quite
missing
released
the rocket. Yeah. Oh, the defensive railgun Base. He's just landing the shots at the moments they matter the most. And CNZ, every single time it feels like he's got an opportunity to just chase his opponent down. Base is there. And again, the Tribolt just calling his opponent's stack, making sure that CNZ cannot just blindly push into the room and overpower him. And with 4 or 15 seconds rather left on the clock, CNZ has run out of time.
That's going to be a GG right there. And all things considered, the Blood Run that I think we all expected to see. I know that Blood Run sometimes, especially as we've been going on to stage 3 and stuff like that, it's been a map that we don't really kind of... It's no longer the kind of the one-trick map that, you know what you're getting before you see it. A lot of players, depending on the champions or playstyles or whatever, they can kind of go a little bit wild with it. That definitely was not one of those instances. But what it did celebrate was Base just kind of ruling that map with an iron fist and starving any light he can get his hands on, having a full cycle of items. I missed it. I was going to check just how many items Base had taken.
Oh, yeah.
But it has to be said, though, there is a strong potential that perhaps CNZ was a little bit too passive for a bit too long. That when the frags finally started happening, there was, like, Base had such a lock on that entire map that, you know, from that point, there's not much he can do, because Base does play Runaway on Blood Run better than most people in the world right now.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that assessment. I even said it myself as the match was ongoing. CNZ, he had the base stack, he had an opportunity to try looking for the damage and try and steal away some of the items, but he didn't. He just sat on it for far too long as the minutes just disappeared and time dwindled away. And ultimately, by the time he really put in the effort and went for that final charge, it was already too late. That being said, though, perhaps for the viewers in chat, a very quick notice. Avek has beaten Spardy 2-0 in the lower bracket, meaning that Spardy has been evicted from the tournament. He does get to stay in the Quake Pro League since he won his relegation game, but it will be Avek moving on through the brackets.
Well, if you're in Sparty's position, the important thing is that he's still in Pro League. You know, if you're one of those players that started the day off in those relegation matches, the rest of the tournament can almost sometimes be seen as just bonus matches, I think. So, you know, obviously if you have what it takes, like Cypher's run in stage 1, that's a different story. But fundamentally, the job was done, and now he's out. Feels bad, but we'll see him next time. Avek, though, looking good. No surprise to anyone.
Yep. Absolutely, but that being said, we're about to jump into the second game of this best of 3. 2 teammates going up against each other. We've got CNZ taken on Base. First map was just won by Base on Blood Run, and we're about to jump into the second one, which is Vale of Pnath, where we're getting Ison versus BJ.
Certainly a change of pace, and you know Vale of Pnath will just naturally enforce that, won't it? It's a map where we've seen it tons today. The players can just go in swinging. It is an aggressive map, but with these kind of picks, Again, two very popular champions. You've got the sort of sheer utility of that turret. It can go in some rather awkward and complicated positions that are kind of hard to answer back. Not even talking about just teleports and stuff. But if you look at someone like BJ, I mean, in the hands of someone like Base, Base is the master of being in the perfect position. And if Base is in that position to ambush you, and he's got that dual wield, say a prayer, mate.
Yeah, Base is just one of those players who can switch his playstyle on a dime. He can go defensively for as long as he needs to, but then when he smells blood in the water, he can be so aggressive, exactly as he's doing right now. Dual LG coming out, can't prevent CNZ from stealing away the Mega, but the frag will still go his way. This is starting to look like a little replay of the last map.
Yeah, Base going in all guns blazing right there. All he needs is the LG fresh off the spawn to make magic happen if you're playing as BJ, but as we can see, he's already kind of setting up shop in that center point. The items are just about to spawn. The fight did take a bit of an odd time. It's likely that he should be able to get the Mega, which he can, but Based with some absolutely beautiful LG straight down.
That could have ended a lot worse for CNZ. A slightly different angle would have knocked him down to that tiny little corner with the asset, and that would have spelled disaster instantly. Base suiciding right there, though, whipping out the double rockets, but a bit too close to his opponent, tying things right back up 0-0. That's the first I've seen that today. Tying things back up 0-0.
I like that. You get behind that. But I'm looking at the stack difference. And Base currently was a little bit healthier, so it's no wonder CNZ's going to back off. And the goal is always get that bloody stack up as fast as you can on this map. But as you can see, Heavy is the next objective. But it's not just about running to the items with these guys. It's, I think you're going to get it, so I'm going to put myself in a position to answer back. The funny thing is that both players often have the same idea. Because you look at Base and CNZ in this situation, and even though the Heavy was up for a good 10 seconds at least, it's only just been taken because both players are waiting for the other person to make that move.
Yeah. Base a little skittish right there, running into the turret. He was expecting CNZ to just immediately come from behind, so he just popped the dual wield instantly. But CNZ was on the other side of the map, just enjoying the Heavy he just picked up. So Base burning his ability right there. This might be a bit of an opportunity for CNZ, who does have the turret at the ready. It's also interesting to see how he approaches the turret. Every player does so differently. A lot of them just set it up at a choke point or at the end of a teleporter, as CNZ's been doing a lot. But then some other players really prefer to just keep the turret at hand and throwing it down during an engagement so that you split your opponent's attention.
Base rules with the stack at the moment. Player that's going to spring the immediate trap, and CNZ going to chase it down. Not immediately. He's trying to look a little bit safer here. Going right through that teleporter would have been arguably a suicide mission with the utility that Base had. But again, at a slow pace. Looking for the moment, waits for it. Base has the patience, waits for the teleporter, and eventually CNZ will come through. But this should cause a little bit of a trade-off situation. Mega's going to get taken, and Base should have pretty decent timing on it, but he's got to be careful, actually. In the blink of an eye, he kind of just gave up the Heavy right there for CNZ. At least he got the rail off, though. Could have been much worse.
Definitely continuing the same trend of map 1. This is by far the slowest Vale of Pnath we've seen all day, and we've seen this map played a whole bunch. 3.5 minutes into the map, still 0 frags. There was one for a brief moment, but things are tied back up. And 0-0, this could be a game changer though. Base picking up Mega first, making his way over to Heavy as well. Doesn't quite connect a lot of damage with that dual LG right there. But still, there's a bit of an offset between the items. Mega first, around 5-6 seconds later, we've got the Heavy, so that's setting up a nice rotation as he traps CNZ. Excellent rail as well. And now the Estonian player is really on the back foot.
Very much one of those moments where the second base got that good kind of read on where CNZ was going to retreat to, that now the pressure can really be added up, because look at the damage CNZ. It's going to be a miracle if he survives this. Base didn't even take any bonus damage on the way through. So now CNZ fresh off spawn. He's only going to have an LG, but on this map sometimes an LG can be all you need. Now Base, oh dear, looks like it might get an exact repeat situation, and we will. CNZ runs back to the same retreating spot, Base lying in wait. makes it 2-0. At this rate, could be even more than that, but Turret's just there to force a shutdown.
Definitely seeing some repeat scenarios here. Base dealing a lot of damage over towards the heavy, CNZ running to the railgun area for any sort of cover and resources he can find, and Base just capturing him and punishing him mercilessly over there. And now it's actually Base who's on the back foot, rockets flying around his face, 4 points of health, both players oh so low. Will anyone commit to the kill shot?
Still so railable too.
Yep.
Even now, looks like CNZ is probably going to be able to stop it in due time, but that was a little bit too close for comfort, to be honest. We've surpassed that 5-minute warning. Base is in the lead, but on Vale of Pnath, that 2-0 lead only really lasts so long.
I like the discipline from
Perfect.
CNZ, which he throws to the wind right there, dropping down and taking a lot of LG damage. And a rocket to follow it up with 2. Stacks are pretty much equal right now, but it's Base with the better positioning to pick up the Mega next.
Looking for the right moment. Base once more springs that trap, but hasn't got a lot of weapons to get it done with. SSG could have potentially been on anticipation of CNZ being a bit closer, but again, the benefit is that Base is controlling most of these items. Heavy's going to get snapped up too. And like map 1, if you're CNZ, we're now starting to reach a later stage of the map, and he has no signs of being able to mount a lead or even a comeback at this point. That rail is going to certainly be better than nothing, but Base navigates the map so well that there's often always something to retreat to that he's kind of left in his back pocket. Dual wheel's going to come out. Has to hit his rails, and he does! Double rail, mate. You love to see it.
That was such a risky and almost unnecessary play from Base, though. He could have easily escaped, but his opponent picked up Mega and he just committed to it with a less than ideal stack. Luckily for him, the 2 rails at the end connected, because that would have been a guaranteed death otherwise. Now Base, though, the risk paid off. 3 frags in the lead with 3 minutes left to go.
Base's defensive shots, they've been so good, and as I mentioned that, the 100 comes through. With no rockets in the tank, Base decides not even to mess with it.
Good decision. Because if had CNZ had just dropped, Base didn't have LG, Heavy was stolen, even if you land the rail, Base would have been in such a bad spot if CNZ had pushed him directly. So clever to back away, and now the rail kills the momentum and sends him off the map. Oh, that's a shame.
A shame, but that's happened to everyone that's played on this map before. It gets hit by that
earlier.
That one rail at the worst possible time, and this is potentially the beginning of the end, because now the snowball starts to happen. CNZ, fresh off spawn, maybe even a little bit frustrated, who knows, after a ring out like that, goes for the more obvious play right at the beginning, and Base just sniffs it out. And now 5-0. We were talking about a 2-0 lead barely a minute ago, and now here we are, 5-0. This is a terrible position to be in if you're in CNZ's shoes. Oh, the rockets for Base. They've been magical, and the rail. DNZ forced to retreat again. And that means not being anywhere near one of these important items. This is just to try and deny at this point. CNZ, although I was about to say, probably didn't believe too much that he would survive, but he did a respectable amount of damage in that confrontation.
Yeah, it's actually Base who has to pull away. Finally making the smart decisions, realizing that he's got such a significant lead for a map like Vale that he absolutely doesn't have to contest every single situation like that, and that he can just adopt the same passive playstyle that won him the previous map. Base now just committing to this side of the map, looking for any resources he can find, very hesitantly so, because he knows so well that CNZ is well aware that he's low. And now CNZ has all the stack in the world, but if he cannot find Base, then it's no good to him whatsoever.
Base doing what Base does best. Not dying. Being hard to see. I was going to say. But that 1 minute warning to get 4 frags on a small map, it's very hard to count that out, but CNZ forced into a position where he has to be balls to the wall aggressive. And is he able to get it up? You know what? The fact that he's able to go LG versus double LG was incredibly impressive. But again, this is Vale of Pnath. Even though you can snowball, you can only make sure you snowball if you take minimal damage in the fight. And that's not really what CNZ was able to avoid happening. Now Base is playing that runaway game again. CNZ is going to put the gas on. Can he finish it though? Base, that one rail is going to barely tickle him at this point. 20 seconds on the clock. He is more than happy to give up this control.
Yeah, and Base now knows that he's essentially untouchable. 10 seconds left with a 3-frag lead. CNZ has no way of getting back into this, and he has to push aggressively, which Base takes full advantage of to seal the deal, and that's going to be a clean 2-0 win for Base. Utilizing essentially the same strategy both maps around, right? First getting the aggressive frags, and then once he has the lead, he switches over to a much more defensive playstyle, and towards the second half of the game, his opponent is forced to go in aggressively, making mistakes, giving up a lot of angles, and Base just exploits them perfectly.
It's like one Base, he's one of those players that you can talk about when you say that once they kind of have a hold of things and they have that level of dominance, and then the other player kind of needs to reach that next level. It can be quite hard to do that, it seems, but Base, he's willing to play as long as it takes to reach that level and to reach that point. Like, even if it takes him 8 minutes to dig his heels into the map, oh, he'll happily sit there for the 8 minutes and do what must be done. Like, it's so rare that you'll see Base crack under that pressure, that he goes too aggressive that one time or he pushes too hard that one time. You don't really see it very often with him, and it's one of the things that must make him such a headache to fight against, but the most efficient kind of headache.
The return of Base showing up to break some face there versus CNZ, and that's exactly what he did. Dominated over the course of the game. Obviously, we were talking historics about this one. Said that in the past, CNZ had been able to best him, and that it was looking like this Black 100 bust-up between the both of them could go his way. In reality, in practice, it was the Base show, and once again, he has a great start to a finals rundown.
Yeah, and he's definitely, and we've spoken extensively throughout the whole of the last stage, of how much he's come on as a player. Obviously shining bright in Poland, and CNZ not so much. And it's definitely been Base here that took control right from the off and never really looked like giving in. It was obviously quite close throughout, but Base once again did look very comfortable and has shown true pedigree of someone that can go far in this tournament.
Hopefully he does as well, because he is quite an exciting competitor to watch as well. His play style, that slow, meticulous style of approaching the game is damn good as well, and it works to try and completely be able to decipher your opposition and play it cleanly. Obviously for Base then, a great way to start things. For CNZ, what do we imagine is obviously going to continue on for him, now being locked into the lower bracket, Flea?
I mean, it's going to be difficult for sure. He has shown a lot of promise. We've been discussing this the entire way through. When he was playing Chrom, there were some moments of brilliance, and even now against Base, the fundamentals were there. They were all really solid, but he just wasn't able to kick things into gear fast enough, and Base just took perfect advantage of that by using that highly defensive playstyle. So CNZ, I think he could absolutely make waves. We saw this in the past as well, back when he was in the Pro League in Stage 2. He took maps and complete matches of some of the best players in the business, so I think that a lot of people are going to be excited to see what he can bring even in the lower brackets.